They came without fear, an alien fleet 300 strong, battle-hardened and arrogant, entering Terran-protected space like it was theirs to take. The Thalzar Dominion had conquered dozens of worlds before breakfast, and to them, Earth was just another name on the list. When they received the human transmission, simple, calm, and direct, they laughed. "Withdraw immediately or face retaliation," it said. No bluster, no threats, just a warning. One they were too proud to heed. What happened next would be recorded in over 1,000 star systems as a turning point in galactic history. The skies above Velmar 9 didn't just darken, they lit up with the fury of the Terran fleet. Precision. Weapons, unmatched tactics, and a silence and execution that terrified even seasoned warriors. The Thalzar thought they were the storm, but they had never seen what humans send when diplomacy ends. Across the vastness of the Orion Arm, in a spiral galaxy teeming with life, humanity had earned a reputation that was equal parts myth and cautionary tale. They didn't colonize as greedily as others. They didn't boast massive interstellar empires or divine hierarchies. But they had one rule that even the youngest spacefaring races quickly learned. If Earth says it's under Terran protection, you don't touch it. The Thalzar Dominion, however, had either forgotten that lesson or chose to ignore it, fueled by generations of unchecked conquest and a prideful belief in their fleet's invincibility. The Thalzar entered Terran-designated space near Velmar 9, a small but strategically vital planet allied with Earth. The humans responded with a simple universal broadcast. "This is Earth. Velmar 9 is under Terran protection. Withdraw immediately or face consequences." The message was cold, emotionless, and broadcasted in every major galactic language. But the Thalzar laughed. A single human planet standing in the way of their war machine? It was absurd. They assumed the message was a bluff, meant to buy time. They were wrong. Velmar 9 wasn't a particularly powerful world. It had rich mineral veins and advanced weather control systems, but militarily, it was underwhelming. What made it important was its location, a natural gate between two hyperspace corridors and a research partnership with Earth-based scientific communities. Human engineers helped build its power grid. Human soldiers trained their planetary defense forces. And above all, they had signed the Terran Protection Accord. The Thalzar Dominion had been watching Velmar 9 for years. Their high strategists believed Earth had grown passive, relying too much on diplomacy and intergalactic norms. They theorized that the Terran threat was psychological, reputation without bite, a well-crafted illusion. So when the Thalzar War Council voted to invade Velmar 9, they did so with near unanimous confidence. Hundreds of warships surged into Velmar 9's orbit, jamming communications and initiating orbital bombardments of outposts and infrastructure. Civilians fled to underground shelters. Velmar's defense fleet, a modest mix of outdated corvettes and planetary ion cannons, was vaporized within 20 minutes. Their ground forces followed next. Thalzar troops landed across the equatorial continent, setting up forward bases. The message was clear. This wasn't a raid, it was occupation. Humanity watched. For 7 hours, Earth made no move. At exactly the 8th hour, a new broadcast emerged from subspace. This time, it wasn't a warning. Protocol Sigma is now in effect. Stand by for the arrival of the 8th Fleet. Terran military fleets were categorized not by size, but by function. The 8th Fleet was a rapid deployment, deep strike response unit. Designed for suppression, interdiction, and targeted neutralization of interstellar threats, it had not been activated in over 3 decades. It consisted of 37 capital ships, 112 support cruisers, and over 3,000 auxiliary drones. But what truly made it terrifying was not its size, but its doctrine. The 8th Fleet didn't fight wars. It ended them. The ships dropped out of FTL within Velmar 9's upper orbit, deploying with exacting precision. Each human vessel was a blend of raw industrial design and ruthless efficiency. There were no ceremonial banners, no polished hulls, just hardened steel, adaptive armor, and kinetic weaponry tuned for brutal output. The Thalzar, believing the humans would negotiate or posture, were unprepared. The first volley wasn't aimed at the Thalzar flagship or their orbital defense stations. It was aimed at their supply ships' communication relays and escape routes. Within the first 30 minutes, 60% of their logistical fleet was destroyed. Not disabled. Destroyed. Vaporized or ripped apart in silence. Human warfare was built on lessons that spanned thousands of years. From guerrilla tactics in the dense jungles of Earth to trench warfare and space station boarding actions, they had studied conflict not as an art, but a science. Where the Thalzar relied on central command and strict hierarchy, humans relied on distributed intelligence. Every Terran ship had its own AI battlefield commander. Every squad of soldiers was a modular unit capable of full-spectrum operations without needing to wait for orders. Humans didn't just fight. They adapted. Thalzar orbital defense arrays began firing back. Plasma beams scorched through the void, clipping 2 human ships. Within seconds, they were countered. Terran counter-AIs had already predicted their targeting algorithms. Railgun slugs the size of cars tore through the Thalzar formations, ignoring shields by accelerating so fast they punched through molecular bonds. On the ground, the human response was equally precise. Orbital drop pods delivered mechanized infantry and subsonic descents, touching down directly on Thalzar outposts. The invaders had hours to fortify. The Terrans dismantled them in minutes. Local Velmaran civilians, huddled in bunkers, watched. Live drone feeds in stunned silence. They had seen Thalzar brutality. Now they witnessed human efficiency. Where the Dominion conquered with fear, humanity countered with control. No emotion, no hesitation. Just results. Within 16 hours of the first human ship arriving, the Thalzar fleet had lost 73% of its total assets in the Velmar sector. The remainder attempted retreat. They didn't get far. The humans didn't pursue in rage. They simply calculated potential risk vectors and eliminated them. Every fleeing ship was intercepted by long-range drone squadrons or interdiction fields that collapsed their warp exits. There was no battlefield. There was only a cleansing. On board, the Thalzar flagship, Commander Vokhtar recorded a final log. We underestimated them. We thought humans were diplomats with weapons, but they are something else entirely. When they give you a warning, that is your last chance. The flagship was captured intact, not destroyed. A message to the rest of the Dominion. Back on Earth, no celebrations were held, no parades, no political speeches. The entire operation was catalogued, analyzed, and stored in Terran Strategic Command records. It was not seen as a victory. It was seen as duty fulfilled. Weeks later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Over 400 sentient species watched the declassified footage from Velmar 9. Some shuddered. Others took notes. The Thalzar Dominion signed a non-aggression treaty with Earth and its allies within the month. Not because they were defeated, but because they had finally understood. Humanity wasn't a conquering force. It wasn't an empire. It didn't spread through domination or faith. It simply existed with boundaries, rules, and a reputation earned in blood and logic. And when it said, leave or face consequences, it wasn't posturing. It was truth. In the aftermath of Velmar 9, the galaxy saw a paradigm shift. A new era of diplomacy emerged, not out of fear, but out of deep respect. The Terran model of defensive alliances and deterrence began influencing other planetary systems. Small worlds, once ignored by the major empires, now had a beacon to align with. They called it the Terran Shield. Velmar 9 itself became a symbol, not of war, but of protection. Earth deployed humanitarian aid, rebuilt its damaged infrastructure, and invited Velmaran scientists to Earth-based academies. The scars of the battle were preserved, not erased, so that future generations would remember what happens when warnings are ignored. Meanwhile, in the Thalzar Dominion, the ruling council faced internal revolt. Military leaders who had pushed for the Velmar 9 campaign were stripped of their titles. A younger generation, having witnessed Terran resolve, advocated for reform. They didn't wish to become Earth's enemy again. As for Earth, it returned to its quiet watch. The Eighth Fleet was deactivated once more, its ships docked in lunar hangars, maintained by silent crews who hoped they'd never be called again. Protocol Sigma returned to a classified file deep within Terran Command, only to be opened if another line was crossed. And throughout the stars, when whispered legends told of Earth's fury, parents taught their children a single phrase.